Welcome back, Beaver Nation, to another edition of the Beaver Sports Show. Back from his week-long suspension from the Beaver Sports Show is Alice Crawford, and to his left from the OSU men's golf team is Johnny Motomochi. It certainly was a great weekend for the Oregon State baseball team, as then 6th-ranked Stanford came to Goss Stadium, and Oregon State got the series win. Coming up, we'll have highlights from Sunday's rubber match.
Although they showed a valiant effort against the number 1 ranked Cal Bears, the softball team fell in all 3 games to them this weekend. We'll have more from them and from their senior day coming up.
From the KBVR TV studio on the campus of Oregon State University, this is the Beaver Sports Show.
After splitting the first 2 games of the series against the Stanford Cardinal, the Beaver baseball team went into Sunday's game looking to get the series win. Dan Child got the start on the mound for the Beavers and worked 7 innings, only allowing 4 hits and 2 runs in his 9th quality start of the season. With more on Sunday's game, here is Sports Show reporter Kylie Martin.
After a tough 8-2 loss on Friday and a 4-2 win to the Stanford Cardinal on Saturday, the Oregon State baseball team went into last Sunday's game knowing that they needed a second win to gain a victory for the series. The Beavers took the lead of 3-0 after the first 2 innings, but were challenged with 2 runs by Stanford in the 6th. The Beavers responded with Tyler Smith, who gave them an upper hand in the lead with a score of 4-2 in the 8th inning. Dominic Jose from Stanford gave the Cardinal their 3rd run in the 9th on a 4-3 groundout, and Kenny Kruger tied up the score and sent the game into extra innings with a single to right field with 2 down. The Beavers started the top of the 10th inning with Joey Matthews and Dylan Davis both with singles, with 1 out, followed by Michael Conforto, who walked on 5 pitches to load the bases for Ryan Dunn. Dunn then sent a shot to the gap in left field for the game-winning hit. Dunn, Ryan Gorton, and Joey Matthews all had 2 hits for the Beavers, who finished the game against the Cardinal with 12 hits total. Tyler Smith led the team in RBIs with 2, joined by Ryan Barnes, Ryan Gorton, and Ryan Dunn with 1 each. Dunn's teammates made sure they congratulated him on the game-winning hit with a handful of shaving cream to the face while he was giving an interview with the media after the game.
After getting the series win, the Beavers jumped into the rankings, grabbing the 23rd spot according to Baseball America. On Tuesday, the Beavers traveled down to Eugene to play the Oregon Ducks in a Civil War matchup. The Ducks scored all 3 of their runs in the first inning and held on to get the win 3-2. The Beavs scored 2 runs in the 8th inning as Danny Hayes and Ryan Barnes both drove in runs. A good sign from Tuesday's game was the work of the relief pitchers as the combined effort of Dylan Davis, Matt Boyd, Cole Brocker, and Tony Bryant allowed only 1 hit and 3 walks in the final 5 1/3 innings. This Friday, the Beavers will travel to Salt Lake City to take on the Utah Utes in a 3-game series. First pitch is Friday at 11 a.m.
The 22nd ranked Oregon State softball team hosted the number 1 ranked California Golden Bears in their final home series of the season. Play began Friday afternoon with Cal getting on the board in the 2nd inning, taking an early 3-0 lead. The Golden Bears added 6 more runs in the 4th inning, mainly due to OSU errors. Hannah Buska scored the Beavers' lone run in the 4th when she hit a double to the left center gap. Buska's stroke extended her hitting streak to 5 games. Ultimately, OSU fell with the final score being California 9, OSU 1. Game 2 began in a similar fashion as the Beavers found themselves down early after a home run from Cal's Valerie Arioto in the 1st. After the early home run, junior pitcher Marina DeMore had an excellent performance on the mound, pitching confidently against the Cal lineup and pulling through in tough situations. Even though the valiant effort, Beavers came up short once again in Game 2, with the final score being Cal 4, OSU 2. Sunday's game marked Senior Day for the Lady Beavs and the final game for the seniors, Emily Richardson, Nikki Chandler, Mary Claire Brenner, Erin Guzzi, and Paige Hall. For the second day in a row, the Beavers were able to hold the nation's top squad at bay offensively. With more on Sunday's game, here's Beaver Sports reporter Kazra Azizian.
After dropping the first 2 games of the series, the OSU softball team was still in high spirits for senior day. Although the team has been recently on fire with wins in the past week, the Cal Bears definitely asserted their dominance as the #1 team in the nation. The Bears jumped out to an early 1-0 lead in the first inning, but the Beavers hung tight, only allowing 3 hits in 7 innings, which is the lowest total for the Cal Bears in 51 games. Paige Hall, Tina Andriana, and Marina DeMore were all phenomenal on the mound, giving the Beavers an opportunity to get back into this game, but the Beavers struggled to bring base runners around. Danny Gilmore doubled in the first, and Hannah Buska made it all the way to third, but both were left stranded. Cal's Jolene Henderson was unstoppable, striking out 12 and only allowing 1 run on an RBI single by Elizabeth Santana. A 2-run jack in the 6th was all but sealed it for the Cal Bears as they won this one 4-1. Overall, the Beavs had their chances against the #1 team in the nation, but couldn't ever break through. Senior Day celebrations took place after the game as the Beavers honored their 4 seniors, Paige Hall, Mary Claire Brenner, Erin Guzzi, Emily Richardson, and Nikki Chandler. The Beavers finished up the regular season with a 3-game road trip to Arizona starting tonight, looking to cement their ticket to the NCAA Tournament Regional. This is Kaz reporting for the Beaver Sports Show. Back to you guys.
The women's track team and men's rowing team were also in action this past weekend as the women ran at the Oregon Twilight and the rowing team traveled up the I-5 to row in the Windermere Cup in Seattle. With an update on how those teams did, here's men's rower Morgan Bowman.
This past weekend, the OSU girls track team headed down to Eugene to compete against very competitive schools in the Oregon Twilight. On May 5th, the girls laced up and fought for glory on Hayward Field. Saving their top girls for the Pac-12s, the Beavs mostly sent out freshmen and sophomores out to run against the upperclassmen of Boise State, Lewis and Clark, University of Oregon, Washington, Portland, and much more. Sophomore Emily Wheeler stated that even though we did not have our fastest girls on the track, we still had a great weekend and are prepared for Pac-12 championship. Also, the men's rowing team made their way up to Seattle, Washington to row on the Puget Sound against the treacherous University of Washington and many more for the Windermere Cup. This race is the opening day for boating, so thousands of people lined up and down the course to cheer on the rowers. The Washington Huskies usually win every race without any problem due to some unfair home court advantages, but the OSU JV boat this year gave the Huskies a run for their money, finishing only 4 seconds behind the nation's fastest team. It has been a successful year for the Beavs so far, so we hope to keep it up and knock down some schools next weekend in Sacramento, California for the Pac-12 Challenge.
Thanks, Morgan. 3 Oregon State football players also competed at the Oregon Twilight as Marcus Wheaton set a PR in the 100-meter dash as he ran it in a time of 10.58 seconds, which was second overall in the race. Coming up, the Beaver Roundtable, our newest segment, where Alex and Johnny will debate the questions that I want answered. You're watching the Beaver Sports Show on KBVR TV. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Beaver Sports Show, and it's time for our newest segment, the Beaver Roundtable. And guys, to start things off, the Oregon State baseball team got a huge series win over 6th-ranked Stanford this past weekend, including just a great game on Sunday when they got a walk-off hit from Ryan Dunn. Guys, is this enough momentum? Does this series win provide enough momentum for this baseball team to finish out the Pac-12 season strong?
I I won't go ahead and say that this series, the Stanford series, gave them enough momentum, but if they do well at Utah this weekend, if they get the sweep, which I think they have to do, then I think that is enough momentum. But just the Stanford series alone, not enough momentum because we saw them come back and lose to Oregon just, 2-3 days ago. So if they had enough momentum just because of the Stanford series, they would have beat Oregon. So Utah is going to be super telling. They need to get the sweep if I have any faith in them going towards the postseason.
Momentum, I wouldn't say they have momentum yet. I think that if they would have swept Stanford, that would have been huge. I mean, obviously a series win is great against number 6 team in the nation. That bullpen needs work. And that's bullpens wins championships coming down the stretch, and they need Tony Bryant to close out games. Like, they obviously won the last game, but
they gave up the lead in the ninth inning.
It shouldn't have even been close. Yeah. And so for that, I just really think the bullpen needs to come through. And to answer your question, I really don't think they have the full momentum, especially with losing to the
Pat
Ducks.
Casey did say after the game that he wasn't really worried about the bullpen. He thought since the guys had shown earlier in the year and showed in past seasons what they can do with their arms, he wasn't really worried. He thought it would come together, but certainly the bullpen needs to get better if this team is going to make any run in the NCAA tournament, because you're playing so many games, you're going to have to use so many pitchers to keep guys fresh, that if guys can't get it done, especially a closer, going against teams that are going to be very similar in strength to Stanford and be able to hit the ball the way Stanford hits it, you're going to have that relief pitching. But a good sign also, Civil War, they had, Tony Bryant, Cole Brocker, Matt Boyd. They had a lot of guys pitching in that game, and they only held Oregon to one hit in the final 5 1/3 innings. So that's a positive sign, even though it's only one game sample.
That's a step in the right direction. This Oregon State baseball team is a lot of things this season, but one thing they're not is consistent. So until they get that consistency, I can't have any faith in them, although it is in their favor that the Civil War at the end of the season, to close out the season with Oregon, is at home.
Definitely.
So that'll be a home field advantage. If there's any series for the men's baseball team that you're going to come out to this year, got to go to the Civil War to close out the season.
I agree, Crawford. I think that Duck series is huge. We talk about momentum all the time, and to carry that momentum, hopefully, the pitching staff has a good weekend. The starters have been great, besides that first inning against the Ducks, but that weekend's going to be huge for them going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And this week should be a good opportunity for Oregon State to possibly get a sweep, as the Utah Utes are in last place in the Pac-12 conference. So definitely getting momentum should happen this weekend.
Yeah, they're struggling for sure.
So definitely the Beavers need to take advantage. Last question for you guys, though. Looking ahead to next OSU, or to the next basketball season for the Beavers, Coach Robinson has brought in 3 really highly regarded recruits in Langston Morris Walker, Jamal Reed, and even the Oregonian Micah Ostling. Who do you think is going to really be the premier freshman that will play the most out of these 3 guys?
I got to go with Langston Morris Walker. He reminds me a lot of Jared Cunningham, Bay Area kid. He's super athletic, can throw down very hard. He's not going to be Jared Cunningham his freshman year, but if you remember, Jared Cunningham was super raw his freshman year, and now he's developed into a guy who's going to go in the NBA draft. So I think, kind of like we saw Charlie Barton this season get some playing time off the bench, Langston Morris Walker is not going to be an impact player by any means, but I think he's going to get a lot of playing time, and I think we're going to see a couple ferocious Ducks by him for sure.
I'd agree. Morris Walker, huge talent from what I've heard. Great athleticism. I mean, Jared Cunningham wasn't Jared Cunningham his freshman year. No. So he's going to come in. He'll probably play a little bigger role than Charlie Barton did. And I mean, he's going to be great. I think he's going to be one of the great ones. The other 2 I haven't really heard as much from, but that Morris Walker kid, he's raw, he's athletic, and I mean, he fits into this offense really well.
I think Jamal Reed's going to be the premier guy as a freshman at least. Was recruited by everybody. Alabama, Florida, West Virginia, Wake Forest, all recruited him. Big schools.
He's from Georgia, and he came to Oregon State. So
6'7", 225, a little bit bigger than Morris Walker, but he's kind of that dark horse guy. Not a whole lot of Beaver fans really know about him because he is from Georgia. Langston Morris Walker's from the Bay Area, and committed to Oregon State right away. So also it'll be interesting to see how Ostling does. I think he's more of a little bit of a project to work with, but getting an in-state guy who's really highly regarded around the country. He was rated the 30th best center by ESPN and the 89th best player overall in the country. There's a lot of high hopes for him. He's a big guy too. He's 6'10" and 230 and has a lot of great skill. For a big man at 18 years old, that's rare to see a guy be able to move like he does.
Sorry, Crawford, but I think we all can agree that this team needs toughness. And I think he can bring it. You know, being 6'10", a bigger guy, they need someone to grab those boards and get those extra offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds. So I think he could be the guy for sure.
And something I was going to say is this just shows that Oregon State's recruiting is taking a huge step in the right direction, because in the past there's been super highly recruited talents in state that have left state because both U of O and Oregon State have failed to recruit them. Kevin Love, Terrence Jones, guys that have gone out of state and been great. So it's great that Craig Robinson's getting some good in-state talent. That's a step in the right direction, and a lot of good basketball talent comes out of the state of Oregon. So if Oregon State can start getting those recruits, that's great for the future.
Oh, definitely. I definitely agree with you guys. Well, that's all the time we have for you tonight for the Beaver Sports Show. On behalf of Alex Crawford and Johnny Motomochi and everyone here at the show, I'm Boon Kruger. Hope you have a great night, and we'll see you back here next week.